I will hand it off to our two wonderful presenters, Janaye and Jason. But this is year-end fundraising, what 2019 taught us and how to succeed in 2020.
Yeah, well, welcome. Good morning, wherever you guys are calling in from. We definitely want this to be interactive, so feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to put in your questions that we'll hopefully be able to get to towards the end. And yeah, we're just excited to dive into this.
So first and foremost, as Janaye just mentioned, we do have the chat window open. So Eric's going to be writing down some of the questions that come through there. And at the end, we'll be trying to get to as many of these as possible. I will say this is a little bit longer of one of our presentations. So we do want you guys to be able to receive all the information, but definitely always have the opportunity, if you want more of a one-on-one connection, to go to communityboost.org/let's talk and set up a one-on-one consultation time. We're happy to speak with you guys about your particular programs or particular campaigns that you have going on for the end of this year, as well as, you know, talking about going into 2021 successfully. We do also have, and I would suggest if you're not already on this, it's a great resource for nonprofit professionals like yourselves to join our Digital Marketing for Nonprofits Facebook group. It's a private group where people can exchange ideas, best practices. It's a great place to network as well with others who are going through the same crazy 2020 that we all are, but coming up with solutions, coming up with really great ways to talk about what they're doing. And so it's a really solid place there, but always an opportunity to connect with us one-on-one as well. And so I'm just going to start off just a little bit of introduction of myself, and then I'll let Janaye introduce herself. So I'm Jason. I'm one of the account manager or account executives here at Community Boost. I've been with Community Boost just a little over a year. In my previous life, I was a senior campaign manager for the San Diego chapter of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, as well as I've worked alongside nonprofits in the technology space for about the last 7 years. So very excited to go through this ultra unique year end and learn what you guys are tackling, as well as present some of our ideas to you. Janaye?
Yeah, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Janaye. I'm also account executive here. I've been here for almost 2.5 years. It's really fun, and I'm just really passionate about the nonprofit sector, and I've always been in it, and I think I'm just really always advocating for nonprofits of just becoming more sustainable and how can we platforms in strategic ways where clearly for-profits are on, and how can we give you guys tangible steps to hopefully maximize these channels. And so I'm excited to dive into this as well.
So for those of you that don't know too much about Community Boost, in 2019, we serviced over 186 nonprofits and generated around 7.5 million in online revenue. And, you know, that's in all formats, from donations to registrations to other campaigns. And we've been around for just about 8.5 years. Originally started as website redevelopers for nonprofits and quickly moved into the channels that help nonprofits get the most eyes on them, because we know that nonprofits are always focused on getting the actions out of donors and supporters that they see as most valuable. As you can see, we work with a wide range of organizations, from, you know, smaller 1- and 2-person staff shops all the way through multinational organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really fun to do the work that we do and specialize in just nonprofits. So today, just the top 5 takeaways before we dive in is that we're just going to give you some examples of some partners that we've worked with. We really want to look at 2019 and obviously how 2020 will be different. We're going to talk about how to strategically launch your year-end campaign, and also just 5 tips just to make it the most effective it's ever been. And then of course, you know, we know that all nonprofits have different goals, different strategies, where you guys are at in your budget. So we're always going to, you know, offer a complimentary one-on-one session afterwards.
So we know, sorry guys, I might be a little bit of a delay, but we know that 2020 has been unlike any other year. And unfortunately, we have talked to organizations that have had to furlough or cut back on staff or staffing hours. We've seen organizations who, since the start of March, have been running campaigns, not just to, maintain organizational funds, but really to keep their doors open. And so organizations have been working so hard and fighting tooth and nail to keep going because, yes, there is a global pandemic and there's a civil rights revolution going on, but all the while demand for services has never been higher. So organizations being able to highlight that they still exist, they're still making a positive impact on their communities, whether those are local or national communities, has been a real struggle. And it's something that everyone's dealing with, which is exactly why this 2020 end of year is more important than ever before to actually get in front of potential donors, new supporters, and start off 2021, which I believe we're all hoping is going to be a better year, but start off 2021 strong by ending 2020 with the most successful campaigns that we can have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and exactly what Jason was talking about. We really want to look forward, but of course we need to look back and understand what we learned from year-end 2019. And so just to talk about the giving season, as I know you guys are all super familiar with it, but most of donations come in November and December. 33% of all donations happen in just December, and specifically the last 3 days, which is always interesting. So clearly this is the most marketable time of the year. And just looking at Giving Tuesday a little bit more, because that typically, kicks off campaigns for year end, is that it's just a massive and it's a growing fundraising opportunity. Just over the years, specifically tracking from 2015, it's been an exponential growth. And in 2019 alone, Giving Tuesday raised over $500 million. I mean, it's pretty clear that this is just a growing trend. This year will be really interesting to see the data points, but this is always something that we don't want to surpass. And what's interesting too is that just online giving continues to grow. So on Facebook, there's been a year-to-year growth. In November and December, it accounted for all of 26% of Facebook revenue. And what's interesting too is that there's different avenues that nonprofits are testing, such as text messaging. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it is clear that online giving, it isn't going anywhere, especially online activity. If anything, we've probably seen the biggest growth of online activity.
So just wanted to highlight some of our partners in last giving season. So obviously Save the Children is a very large multinational organization, but a couple of things to note here is we were actually able at the end of the year to use the Google Ad grants to drive donations. If you don't know what the Google Ad Grants is, definitely take a look at our site. Janaye and our colleague Jordan actually have a really short introductory video called the Google Ad Grants in 2020, which is a great framework to let you know what it is and what it can do. If anyone in the organization hasn't heard of it, or if you're not utilizing it yet, it is a great way to get additional eyes onto your website. It is a quality website traffic driver. And at the end of the year, we can also leverage it towards actual fundraising dollars. And then on the Facebook side, for Save the Children particularly, they hadn't been seeing a positive return on ad spend for their Facebook ads. And one thing to note here is we talk to a lot of organizations where they might have done Facebook, but that could mean a boosted post. That might not necessarily mean a fully successful Facebook ad or Instagram ad campaign that can show such strong positive return on ad spend. So you can see we drove 214 new sponsors for Save the Children and then saw a 5x return on ad spend. And then also, we want to think about all the channels possible. So, definitely the Google Ad Grant is a must-have for organizations to take advantage of that $10,000 of free search ads every month. But there are also paid Google ad channels that we can take advantage of specifically at the end of the year. It's a little more competitive, so it might make sense to maximize what we can spend in the Google Ad Grant and strategize around, if we are going to spend real money, where can we spend it and how can we see, this type of 5x or 6x, whatever the return is on that paid Google side. But this does take, time to do. We want to make sure that we're setting things up correctly. So I want to talk a little bit about another organization that we partner with called TCF USA. And this is really a testament towards as organizations learn and grow, how their strategies can improve, how the audiences and the people that we're targeting can improve, and thereby all of the revenue that's generated can improve as well. So when we first started with TCF, it was around 2018, and at that time, they hadn't done a back to school campaign previously. And we were really focusing on doing first a back to school campaign so that we could take the successes from that campaign and parlay them into end of the year success. Now, TCF has a great 24-year history where they've built 1,567 schools, providing 252,000 children with education, and it is an incredible organization. So they did already have some strong donor lists to build off of, and they had really tangible and transparent donation appeals, but they hadn't done this back to school campaign. They really had zero history of Facebook ads to build off of, limited Google ad grant experience, and a minimal Instagram following. And then when we talk to organizations, this is not uncommon for organizations to possibly have the Google ad grant, but not be using it to its full capacity, maybe have tried Facebook, but haven't seen the returns, so they're a little hesitant. So we really want to talk through these strategies of how this can work best, who are we targeting, so that we can get the types of results that TCF did. So on the next slide, we can see that for that first summer campaign, we used around $5,000 in an ad spend towards Facebook and Instagram and generated around $17,000 in return. Always great to see a positive return, but we knew we could do better because we always are learning from the campaigns that we're running. You want to be able to analyze data and make database decisions and move away from saying, oh, we feel like something's working, but going to a spot where we know this is particularly working. These are the levers we can pull to now get a better return on our ad spend, which is exactly what we did in 2018 for them. Based off that first got back to school campaign, we were able to spend a little more because we saw proof of concept in that return, and then see a much bigger, taking advantage of both the time of year and our expertise in their audiences, now that we had seen some initial returns, to see 217,000. So that was a 24x return for $493 total dollars, or 493,000 total donation dollars, revenue. This is great, and we continued these trends to where, again, in 2019, we could spend a little more because we knew the best practices, still see an incredible return of 19, almost 20x return. And one thing to note is that the online donations continually increased, and we also saw more overall funds. So this is the type of, not just success, but the type of thinking where we're running smaller campaigns, testing things out, maximizing audiences, seeing a positive return, and then doing the process again so that we can refine and get better and better with each campaign that we run. So definitely looking at what you did in 2019, end of the year, we want to take any data that we have from there so that we can refine and focus on 2020. There was talk of donor fatigue earlier, and that's definitely something we want to be aware of. So there are other ideas around, does it make sense to do more of an appreciation campaign at the end of the year and wait until we have another compelling event? We definitely want to look at what we did, what are going to be the best strategies for our particular audience, who are some new audiences we can go after, and how can we improve this year? So just moving on to some of our other key takeaways. A lot of organizations that we speak with have that loyal community. I don't know how many times I've heard, but the people who know us give to us. That is something that's very common, and it's incredible about nonprofits, particularly because the missions that you guys have that you're fulfilling, people are compelled to support you in that. And so once we have donors, we definitely want to keep them for as long as possible. And one-time donors that return to start recurring subscriptions, 25% proceeded to make another one-time gift. So this is really increasing the lifetime value of these supporters. And 11% made donations to crowdfunding campaigns, purchased an event ticket, which events will come back. So we know that, maybe it's 2021, maybe it's 2022. We're going to have events again, but we also have alternative event ideas. So we want to be aware of those, but all these ways to keep people coming back and to keep them loyal. And then if we are doing Giving Tuesday campaigns, getting back and engaging them sooner. A majority of Giving Tuesday donors don't return until the next holiday season, but 31% of those who do return for a second gift do so within 6 months. People right now are often trapped at home for longer hours than they expect. We need to give them something to do, and engaging with the nonprofits that they care about is a great way to give them activities, give them that sense of contributing to the community, and possibly shortening the period between either the donations or the engagement that you have with them.
Mm-hmm. And just to go over just some other key takeaways, you know, it's all about timing. We want to make sure that it's as easy as possible to give, and then also let's have strong creative, because people who spend 4 to 5 minutes on your campaign pages are likely to convert. And then something that we never want to miss, and that, you know, we can't really do justice to enough, is just the reoccurring giving. So this is a huge opportunity for nonprofits to have a longer donor lifetime, usually 5 times return. And to be honest, this is more stable for the organization, right? But we need to let people know what they're getting if they're joining their, you know, monthly giving. Are they being updated on the work that you do? You know, why should they give $10, $20, $30, and give them options? What's really cool about this slide as well is the infographic to the right. It just talks about main reasons why customers and or donors exit. And what's interesting is at the top green section under the donors, about 30% of people exit, of donors exit for things that we can control. You know, we need to keep people updated on the work that you're doing. Why are you fundraising? You know, what is this money going towards, and why do you need their support more than ever? And so now we're going to be looking into year-end 2020. So we're going to be going over 5 tips, obviously, to hopefully make this year-end successful with unprecedented times. So what we'll be going over is, first and foremost, how do you create really strong creative? How do you start early? We need to choose the right channels. We need to, you know, live through the trough, and we need to do next level stewardship with our donors. So for tip 1, we're going to just be going over compelling, confident, creative.
Excellent. So first and foremost, we want to be specific. The best performing campaigns stand out by having one message that is concrete and specific, ensuring that your campaign messaging is consistent across all channels. So we're going to talk about a lot of these channels that you're going to be using, but consistency across, you'll see when we get to things like Facebook ads or even direct mail campaigns, having that multi-channel approach and being consistent across that is really key. One of the things that is very helpful for organizations, and if your organization hasn't done this yet, is creating those impact stats of when people donate, what are their funds going to, and how can that clearly be seen. So moving into being transparent, you know, your supporters are your family. So showing transparency builds that trust when they need it most. Donors really like to understand where their dollars are going to. What are they supporting? If you're an organization where maybe it's not as clear around that, you know, exact 1-to-1 ratio of what the donation does, definitely we want to talk through how are you storytelling and how are you letting people know, because though we might not have a $20 builds X as our impact stat, we still can have a specific and transparent story that lets people know what their funds are supporting, and stay mission focused. This is part of the reason donors get involved with you in the first place, is because they resonate with your mission. So staying true to the mission that we've started with and being sensitive about how that mission is affected in the current COVID crisis. We've seen, you know, different organizations take different approaches when it comes to COVID. So organizations whose doors are closed might approach fundraising differently from an organization who is providing COVID response information. So we want to be aware of our current environment. We want to be strategizing the message to be reflective, respectful, but also be very direct with letting people know that we're still here. We're still providing value to the community, and we still need to fundraise so that going into end of year, going into 2021, our doors can open, reopen, stay open, and that our mission can still be hit. The other piece of the compelling and confident is deciding what we want to test. As with any campaigns, we want to test unique messaging in different audiences. Existing supporters or those more familiar with the brand may need less influencing and storytelling surrounding the campaign, while new potential attendees might need more strategic or emotional logistical kinds of appeals. What this really means is, are we testing out new messaging towards new audiences to get new donors? Are we thanking current and past supporters so that they can get re-engaged? Know what we want to test. Again, this goes back to, did we look at what we did last year? Which was our most successful audiences? Why? Should we do something similar, or do we need to think more outside the box? And definitely this has been a year where thinking outside of the box is the new norm. So don't be afraid to be bold. Now is the time to call on prospecting and existing supporters alike. Getting creative with Giving Tuesday. If we think that we might not stand out in the crowd, maybe relaunching our recurring gifting campaign with a new name or a new giving level that stands out, that helps people feel more impactful. Whatever it may be able to be willing and able to maybe go against the tide a little bit with what you've traditionally done, so that you can show that extra effort and you can show potential donors that you are on the cutting edge, that you are thinking ahead and being bold with your messaging and with your ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really appreciate, Jason going over so much detail of that, because we really need to start early with this creative. Something that is always something that we've just always realized is that almost every campaign has great creative. We don't doubt that nonprofits are collecting stories, trying to think through, that creative mode. But what failed campaigns don't have enough is traction, is how are people learning about you guys? How are they being onboarded to the mission and the work that you do? And more importantly, we guarantee that you guys have taken hundreds of hours to create this creative, but how can we get people to it? And so we really want to start early. What we like to say here is that a goal without a plan is just a wish, and it really is. We really need to pre-wire your audience. The first time that they hear about your Giving Tuesday should not be just a week before. We need to really warm up our audiences, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we need cross-channel consistency. I think this might be obvious, but if we're doing email campaigns or direct mail, social media, we need to make sure that it's all branded and it's all focused together, that there's specific imagery, there's the same call to actions, and we have impact stats as well. And then of course, we want to support your followers in sharing your mission. We want, your most passionate volunteers, your annual donors, your social media champions, people who really know your mission, and we want to make it as easy as possible for them to share your message. So, prepare them now, prepare content that they're able to share and send with their network, and help them prep their outreach to their own networks, whether that's custom emails or social media posts that they can just copy and paste. And so for tip 3, we, have all this creative right. We're starting to think early, but now how can we use the right channels and which to market with? So we understand that marketing is this big organism, right? We always want to have an omni-channel approach. So we're going to go through direct mail, email marketing, Facebook and Instagram ads, which has been really important the past couple of years, conversion design, and then of course, how can we do peer-to-peer empowerment? So the first one that most organizations are almost always doing is email marketing. What we find that most organizations need support with is segmentation. It's extremely crucial because we don't want to send the same message to our reoccurring donors to people who get $100,000 a year or are just major donors, right? We really want to make sure that we customize these sends. We want powerful imagery, video that really motivates people to give and helps them understand, again, what your mission is and why you guys are fundraising right now. Make it really clear of what the call to action is. And again, don't hesitate to send more during this time. They know it's a giving season. They need to keep updated. Definitely take a look at this infographic to the right. That's something that we always use and when we are consulting with our nonprofit partners. And then a new channel that is just uprising in the sector is SMS text messaging. So you guys might have seen this with some for-profits, but it's interesting in the fact that it has almost higher open rates than email. So again, this is pretty new, but in just 2019 alone, it grew by 26%. We find that this is a really strong channel because it's a conversational tone and there's this certain link to it. but also the personalization is really scalable. And the social call to actions, people are just more likely to respond more and more often as well. So it's something that we definitely recommend looking into, but it's just cool to see a new channel kind of pop up.
And along with something Janaye mentioned with the email as well is, we want to definitely be able to, send more. With direct mail, we're probably going to be sending a little less. So not that direct mail doesn't have a spot. When I was a campaign manager, I definitely remember physically stuffing envelopes with smaller envelopes to receive those checks back. But this is a more modern age. There might be some hesitation around opening mail in some areas. So we want to make sure that we're pairing with our direct outreach with our digital outreach. You can use different marketing tools to help inform each other. And we've seen that 50% of donors are more likely to respond to direct mail when it's combined with a multi-channel approach. So this could mean, do we put a QR code on our annual appeal letter that someone can take a picture of with their phone and go directly to their site? 35% respond to direct mail by going to online or mobile. So are we making sure that our URLs are in our email campaigns? We do know that direct mail is more tangible. You can apply textures or sizes or send a creative three-dimensional object. It really does depend on budget. I think there is a lot of talk about, are we seeing still the return on spend that we used to see from direct mail? So this is something where it really, again, works for your organization to analyze, what did they spend on direct mail in the past? Are they seeing that consistent return? Or is maybe this the year to pivot to use some of that budget towards a more robust digital campaign and hyper focus? Same thing, we want to be able to segment out our donors, much with our emails, much with our, digital outreach appeals. So purchasing lists is something that we still can do. Sometimes cost effective, sometimes not. It really depends on what information the list is providing, but it is possible to do and get some new potential donors. I don't want to talk down on direct mail because I have seen it, but this might be a year to test out minimizing our direct mail approach and maximizing our digital outreach, because we want to meet people where they are. And so many more people are digesting online content than they have previously. This could be the year to test it out. And so on that online content piece, we can't stress enough, Facebook and Instagram ads. When we talk about having a well-segmented email list, we also want to talk about the audiences that we can proactively get in front of. Facebook and Instagram really is a proactive tool. Something like the Google Ad Grant is phenomenal for getting people when they're searching for things, to be reactive and making sure your organization is there. But with Facebook and Instagram, we can now directly target specific groups that we want to go after, specific segments, but also we don't want to forget the people that have given to us in the past or visit our website. So remarketing and being able to get back in front of people for that brand awareness, which so many organizations, again, that you don't want to be the best kept secret in your community. So how are you getting back in front of people when they visited your site and now they're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram on their phone? Same thing we talked about those supporters that you have are incredibly loyal. What about their friends? So friends of followers becoming a really important audience that we can go after to get new eyes on our organization. And then, expanding out that audience by using things like interest audiences and lookalike audiences, being able to take past donation lists of emails, upload those to Facebook and say, we want to find people that look and act on Facebook like this list, because we know these are our top donors. And more often than not, lookalike lists are what lead our campaigns to get new donations or new participants for the organizations that we work with. So again, if you've tested Facebook in the past, we'd love to talk about what worked and what didn't for you. If your organization is hesitant around Facebook or Instagram, this is definitely a year that testing out this further might be great. Again, we have the ability and the opportunity, if you'd like to schedule some one-on-one time to look specifically at what you've done on Facebook. We can always arrange, sometimes a Facebook audit might be valuable, but we definitely want to use this channel heavily this year and make sure that we're competing in the right places and meeting people where they are. We also want to lead with gratitude. We mentioned this, and we will mention this again with follow-up, but we want current donors to know that we are appreciative of what they've done, especially, again, to avoid that fatigue of asking. We want to highlight some top donors. We want to highlight people who have given, so that they don't just feel like every time they log onto Facebook, we're asking them again. We want to be able to highlight, possibly resources where we're not asking them to do anything but engage in our materials. We know that people who spend more time on our site are more likely to give. Though we want to keep the giving experience very simple for them, we know that it's valuable to have them spend time on our site. So thanking them, getting them engaged. The remarketing opportunities. Again, if you haven't heard of or are not currently using the Facebook Pixel, that is something that we can definitely send additional resources on. It is highly, highly valuable for getting back in front of the right audiences who have been on your website. And we want to really be creative with video. It's interesting. We've seen conversations between artistic and executive directors on Zoom getting digested content-wise at a level never before. So content is king. It could be something as simple as connecting a potential recipient of some of these funds with some of the top donors and recording that Zoom call. These are all things that are available now, and people are more comfortable with the technologies. And, we see on these particular channels a great return on ad spend. So, 3x to 10x for end of the year, we've seen some skyrocketing numbers, so it's definitely the channel that if we're going to spend real money, we want to see a return on that, and Facebook and Instagram are going to be it. And then conversion design. So this is like the 2 in the 1-2 punch of getting people onto your site and getting the actions that we want them to do. So we can, use this on our websites to pre-wire people, warm them up with a really non-intrusive element, but is also fantastic for converting on-site traffic. So it allows you to advertise your program to the top of funnel traffic that's coming from something like the Google Ad Grant and organic searches. For a lot of our organizations, they're testing out virtual events for the first time. So it might make sense to have, a pop-up or a scroll bar that highlights that an event is coming up and giving people more information. And it also helps with consistency. So instilling trust and legitimacy by having the same campaign from your other channels present on your website. So again, this is that multi-channel approach where maybe the same image that is on a direct mail letter on your Facebook ads is also on this conversion design element. And so someone feels comfortable and confident to give their email or to click to call and connect with you or to go straight to a donate now option. And it doesn't really require a lot of major website edits. So a lot of organizations we talk to, are working off of templates and things like that. So if this is a possibility for your site, we definitely want to take advantage, and we're happy to talk about other examples beyond pop-ups that could be very valuable to your particular call to action. And the final piece is peer-to-peer engagement. So mobilizing core supporters to text, email, call, share on social. We've seen, peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns that have been incredibly successful, but we also want, overall engagement. So again, being able to create those advocates who are now evangelists for your organization. They are spreading the word of what you're doing, why they got involved, and how other people can help them. And this is something where, again, we might want to provide some of our top advocates with an email template to send to their network so that the workload is off of them, the messaging is on brand with the rest of our campaigns, and that way we can retarget and give those people a tool that makes it easy for them to advocate for you. Same thing for social media posts. We might want to highlight a particular donor and have them share it to their network so that they can get involved with their network and get more people to you guys. And then the final piece is, sometimes using those top of funnel visitors to your site to then funnel down into your offline game? Does it make sense to make traditional phone calls? You know, though we can't have the coffee meetings that were so valuable in 2019, you know, we definitely still want to show some one-on-one time. So does a Zoom call or does a phone call or does a FaceTime make sense to have them individually be able to know that they're supported and that they should be an advocate for your organization?
Yeah, and so, you know, just going back to tip one, right? We have all of this great, confident, compelling creative. You know, we really want to start early. We want to choose the right channels. Clearly, there's a lot to choose from. But then also, we need, when we launch it, we need to prepare for the trough, right? And so what we mean by that is that there's this typical campaign donation pattern. So first and foremost, people are always going to have some initial excitement. You know, people are going to engage with the post. And then there's this inevitable kind of drop off. But we need to finish strong. And so when we're talking about that and kind of this inevitable drop off, we really need to be able to lift through this trough, right? How can we consistently engage? And I'm going to walk through some tips to really lift through that time that is inevitable. So ways that we always recommend is just having active campaign management, right? You need to stay consistent. You need to keep on posting, keep on sharing, keep on running your ads, your email marketing. But we also want to have some incentives and maybe some matching challenges. You know, maybe not initially start off your matching game right when you first launch. Maybe we do it in that time where it is a little bit lesser of an engagement. And then now more than ever, and I know Jason has talked about this, is that we really need to be transparent. You know, again, connect them to your mission. Why are we fundraising X amount of money? How have we pivoted? But again, who are you serving? And what are these stories that you guys are trying to support through these donations? You know, segmenting your donors is really important because that storytelling might look a little bit different. Then also your offline game is really important, such as your email or your direct mail. And again, making sure that those are all connected to one another. And of course, we want to highlight some of our donors, give some faces to some names, some recognition can really support, and again, really get you guys through that inevitable drop off. So what's really cool is that we're going to provide you guys with our internal year-end campaign framework. So again, if you guys want this, I'm not going to go through all of the details. We can give it to you as a PDF if you just fill out the form with the link below. But first and foremost, you know, we always want to prepare and analyze 2019. So we're doing a lot of that work right now in October. And then when November hits, we want to do a soft launch. And to be honest, we want to do a gratitude campaign, right? We're not going to ask quite yet. And then when November and Giving Tuesday comes around, we want to do that full launch. And then in that trough, we want to really engage with people. Again, we want to be consistent throughout this time. And then we want to have that big finish. Just connecting it to that first time that we were talking about, that, you know, 30% of giving is given in December. So how can we really finish off strong? And then what most nonprofits really fall off is in January and February. And it's shocking how many organizations don't have a thank you appeal or don't give gratitude to their donors, but we need a strong follow-up strategy to, you know, update the donors in the campaign of what you guys were able to raise. And then more importantly, when we're coming to January and February, how can you really encourage your one-time donors to become reoccurring givers? And again, connect them to what this will do for your organization. And more importantly, as a donor, what am I getting out of this campaign, and what am I getting out of giving to your organization monthly? So again, there's a lot of more information on this slide, but we'll make sure to give it to you guys if you fill out that form.
So I'm going to talk about donor stewardship. I just, before, one key thing that we've mentioned a couple times is about recurring giving programs. And I just think that's so valuable. If your organization doesn't already have a named recurring program, that's definitely something that we'd love to talk about, because, you know, launching it on Giving Tuesday, having like a set number of recurring donors that maybe we want to hit, these are all ideas that we can get creative and be bold, where, you know, Giving Tuesday has become so competitive that if we're launching a recurring giving program on that day, you know, does it become something we can now achieve? And as Janaye just mentioned, that January, February sort of lull, now we have predictable revenue that's coming in January and February to help give us a sense of confidence starting out the year. So definitely, you know, I think if if we haven't talked about it, or if you don't have a program, we'd definitely love to learn about what type of giving that you guys are doing. And if you need some suggestions on recurring programs, we have a whole nother video on launching your recurring gift program. So definitely check that out as well as talk to others on our Facebook group about the recurring giving programs that they have. But happy to talk with anyone. It's probably one of my favorite types of programs. As you can tell, I get a little excited about it, but I'm more than willing to go into more detail on that. But all of these donors that, you know, we're collecting at the end of the year, all these people that we're engaging, whether it's through appreciation or direct asks, whatever it may be, we want to be able to steward these people into long-term supporters. And so for the third time today, we're going to talk about gratitude and how to thank them, highlighting individual supporters on Giving Tuesday or in those last couple days of the year, creating a more personal email coming possibly directly from the executive team. We've actually seen organizations that utilize the service Mixmax, which is a really great emailing service that can have a personalized message that gives you some of that control, but also personal outreach via phone. So, you know, we're on Zoom, the world lives on Zoom now. People are much more comfortable than they used to be. So would it make sense to connect maybe one of our top Giving Tuesday donors or top end of the year givers with one of our recipients on Zoom, record that conversation and being able to share going into January how we're hopeful for 2021 because we're having conversations like this. So utilizing the technologies that people have kind of been forced into, but are now much more confident in, to highlight and thank those supporters and those large donors. And then social media posting, you know, definitely it's something that most organizations, they might have a little bit stretched in on the bandwidth, but the value of it is so important to make sure that we're highlighting those top donors. Again, it goes along with the storytelling that we want to make sure is consistent throughout. And then, you know, obviously video, you know, board members taking iPhone videos of thanking supporters. All of that content has really become key. Obviously, if we can get higher end content, more quality video, terrific, or longer video that we can cut up and use throughout the, you know, January, February months post, that's awesome as well. But definitely people are digesting content at unprecedented levels. So, you know, does it make sense to have all the staff with a quick cell phone video that's cut together of them thanking from their new home offices or from their desks or whatever it may be? And then highlighting the impact. This is, you know, really important. If the organization does or does not have those specific impact stats, letting people know overall what the changes are that came from these end of the year pushes or came from Giving Tuesday, personal stories. We do work with a lot of organizations that might have more sensitive content that they're dealing with. And so they might not be able to use an actual individual, but is there still a story to be told? More often than not, organizations do have that. And that through line of the initial engagement through the Giving Tuesday or end of the year ask with the follow-up of what has been impactful, that can be accomplished even if an organization is not doing a 1-to-1 ratio of $20 or something like that. Infographics and short videos. Infographics are great. You know, something where it quickly highlights what was raised, what's that going to go to, what the increase is year over year. All of those things are easy for people to digest, especially if it's something like an email. I think it's office workers get an average of 100+ emails a day. So how are you making yours stand out? If it's an easy to read infographic, that is a phenomenal idea. And then give them actionable follow-up. We've talked about this a couple times. People in this COVID world are looking for things to do and ways to help, even though they know they can't necessarily go to a physical location. So is there a virtual volunteer opportunity where maybe volunteers are reading stories that are on video that are going to get sent to kids in the community or something like that, where we can give them something that they can do with the technology that they already have that makes them feel more connected to the organization and helps them stay involved. And then if we're doing just a one-time ask at the end of the year, how are we rolling out our recurring giving program? We know that it's, you know, over the lifetime, like the value is 5x of individuals. So you can see here, 487% increase in total lifetime value for recurring gifts. If you haven't named your program, if you don't have the levels, definitely reach out to us so we can talk about some of the most successful strategies there, because we really want people to know it's not necessarily a membership that they need to get benefits of, but is there an incentive for someone giving $65 a month versus $50 a month? Being able to relate to them easily what they want to see and what those actions are going to do. And then obviously a 40 to 50% increase in average donor retention when we have that recurring donor program. So many of the technologies that exist now will help automatically update credit cards as they expire. So you're not the one that has to call and try and get a new credit card number, which I remember can be a real pain in the butt. So like utilizing those technologies to make sure people are staying involved and staying engaged throughout, especially going into this 2021.
All right, everyone. Well, we know that was a lot of information. We'd rather give you too much than not enough at all. And so I'll go ahead and go through just a quick recap. So we want you guys to really walk away with our main 5 tips, right? We really want you guys to focus on compelling, confident, creative. But again, we need to start early and engaging today, tomorrow, and even in October. We want to choose the right channels, really test out some of these options. And then we want to lift through that inevitable dip that we'll have, right? And keep engaging and really finish strong. And then of course, next level stewardship. How can we just make one-time donors into monthly reoccurring? You know, we are always just one call or click away. We're here as a resource. We only work with the nonprofit sector. All of us are super passionate about what you guys are doing. And of course, we want to learn more. And then, you know, it's always fun to celebrate your wins throughout your campaigns and give gratitude to your donors, especially in that January and February time. So we know that this year end will be different, you know, than others, but it's definitely still a time to celebrate and to give gratitude.
And in a short note, sorry, Janaye, to cut you off, but I actually want to celebrate you guys even for attending today, because taking an hour out of a day in this time frame is very much appreciated. And so thank you guys for setting aside time today, because I'm really excited to learn more about everybody and answer any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, feel free to reach out to us. We know that every single mission, every single goal, every single budget is so different. But, you know, we're really passionate about learning more and really customizing, you know, what might work for you guys best. And so we also wanted to make some time. We're coming up on about 12 minutes for some questions and from some answers about what we went over. So feel free to put it into the Q&A or even just the chat. And I know Eric might have 1 or 2 that he already received that we'll go ahead and go through.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just throw them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll bring them up. But just looking at some that we've already gotten, in the channel section, there are many options presented, and with our budget restrictions this year, which channels do you recommend testing or investing to this year end? So for someone with, you know, limited budget but wants to make the most of year end fundraising, what channels are the most impactful for the least amount of spend?
I mean, for me, I see based on the return on ad spend, obviously Facebook and Instagram to me are going to be the most valuable for, you know, getting that return. And because you can be so proactive with the audiences. If you're going after new potential donors, this is a great way to get in front of those new donors versus just, you know, again, we want to avoid that donor fatigue that's been happening throughout the year. So new donors are going to be a premium. I would say for me, you know, being able to control the audiences, being able to A/B test things like imagery or calls to action on Facebook and being able to hyper target those groups. For me, that's the best bang for your buck if we are going to be using a budget at all. I would also say, you know, there is value in utilizing to the maximum the Google Ad Grant to drive additional website traffic to your site. We just also want to pair that up with some sort of conversion design to get those new visitors into a potential new donor funnel, either by an email submission, resource download, you know, online form or something like that. I think those would be, you know, my 2, but I would probably lean towards Facebook and Instagram for the return on ad spend. Janaye, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree. I think with the times coming up so quickly, which is kind of crazy, it takes time for all of these platforms, right? We need to really start early. But what's great about Facebook and what's great about Google is that these are going to be channels that you use for the lifetime of your organization. They're definitely not going anywhere. If anything, they're growing. You know, Facebook owns Instagram. There's billions and billions of users on both. But they're really platforms that we have seen that are just the most scalable. And again, you're not going to see, you know, return in the first month, maybe month and a half. But if you guys are to test out Facebook ads at any time of the year, it's definitely now. You know, you're most likely to see that higher ROI. And yeah, we just recommend, you know, trying out something, because that's kind of the theme of this year, is just pivoting. And so that's definitely the channel that we would recommend.
And I'd also add on to that, if your organization already has quality video content, again, we've talked about content being king, YouTube might be a great way to test as well, because currently we can do YouTube to where you don't actually pay for the ad until someone watches at least 30 seconds of the video. So if you feel that your video content is ultra quality, that might be another avenue to talk about as well, because it can be incredibly cheap as far as like individual cost per ads and things like that. It is more of a brand awareness channel, but it is definitely something to test if you have that quality video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely agree with both of those. I think also, I'm sure all of you guys are utilizing email, but just doubling down because it's essentially free.
Yeah.
But yeah,
email is free. So.
Again, all of these questions we're answering in a relatively broad and vague fashion, but we'd love to schedule one-on-one time to dive deep into exactly how we can help you guys solve your specific needs for this year-end season. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll, just asking if you'd be interested in a free one-on-one strategy session, and we'll have the sales team reach out afterwards.
Yeah, again, you know, we really appreciate all of your times. You know, to see all the data after in January and in February to see what actually happens. But you know, I think we're more excited than ever, and it'll be really fun to pivot along with organizations, and of course just provide value as well.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. Oh wait, now you're muted. And then you're launching that poll right now, Eric.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I think my audio might have just cut out.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so another question that came in is how to combat donor fatigue. So I think we touched on this a little bit with, you know, leading with gratitude with Facebook ads. But if you, Janaye or Jason, have any advice on, after a year of fundraising appeals, how to combat that donor fatigue that's inevitable.
Yeah, I would say definitely full appreciation campaigns. Like, you know, I've talked to some organizations where for them, Giving Tuesday, they might raise quite a few $1,000s, but it's not like the be all end all for the fundraising. So it actually makes more sense for them to spend that day highlighting top donors or highlighting donors in general and doing that appreciation outreach to where they're not actually making an ask at that time. They're just focused on awareness or engagement with resources, video views, things like that really let donors know that they're supported. It would also depend on like how many campaigns, in my head, how many campaigns has the organization run throughout this year? Are they truly fatigued, or have we just not segmented the audience enough to be possibly going after the right audience at the right time? So I would say, you know, making sure that we've segmented our email lists and our audiences so that we're only reaching out to specific areas or specific groups at certain times. And then also having, not just saying that we're going to thank people, but having a true appreciation campaign that launches just like a giving campaign or something like that, where we are highlighting those people and we are making a very specific outreach to thank them publicly and to thank them personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think the main takeaways from Jason is segmentation, and then also just provide a lot of mission impact work. You know, before we're just asking for donations constantly, how can we just create them aware of the mission again, bring them back to what you guys are even doing, engage with them, provide them value, provide them resources, provide them your impact report, and then ask for that donation. You know, we tend just to ask for donations constantly to the same group of people, but how can to that same group of people just provide more value before we ask again?
Yeah, that's great. I think another interesting thing to think about is, what are they fatigued of? Are they fatigued of the opportunity to provide an impact, or are they fatigued from too many of the same stale fundraising campaigns? So it kind of goes back to that compelling, confident, creative. Can you maybe, something we saw one of our clients do is connect beneficiaries of the campaign, so kids that are being sent to school in Pakistan, with major donors through Zoom. Everyone's more comfortable using Zoom. They connected them across the world through a video platform, and they saw huge success there. So it's just thinking about how can we stand out and then deliver that in a segmented way, like Jason was saying. But it's a year-end season. People are more likely to give, partially because it feels good, even in these uncertain times. So how can we, you know, like stand out and give like really just creative and out of the box campaign ideas? And then people are definitely going to engage with them.
Yeah, and I think last thing I wanted to add is that people can only give to you if they know about who you are. I'm always shocked by how many organizations are out there that I've never heard of that I really resonate with in terms of mission. And you can have all this creative, but if you're only sending out to the same old people are going to fatigue, right? And they're only going to give because they know of you. And so how can you guys, you know, create your creative, but then really strategically gain that traction and test out these new channels and get out to people who have never heard of you before? But that's kind of the beauty of digital marketing, is that we can target these ads, we can target email, we can target Google to people who are most likely to resonate with your mission. So it's something just to think about.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any more last minute questions, you can go ahead and throw them in the Q&A or the chat, but I think we'd love to give you these last 2 minutes of the hour back. And thank you guys so much for coming and sitting through this hour-long presentation. Again, we wanted to provide a lot of value with kind of making this deck like a book that we'll send to you afterwards and that you can use when you're building out your entire year-end campaign. And we're always a click or a call away if you need consultation or an audit of any of your existing accounts, or just any one-on-one strategy. So thank you guys.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you
everybody.
all so much.